dice. Okay? Fun game. Our kids got it. You can get it on Google or no, Amazon. Get the big pack that's got, can do it for 6 people. Play it as teams. You'll read about it. But, I mean, we've been playing that. People that have come into our home, if you're going to have a relational thing, that's really a lot of fun. Finding games that you can play that quickly. Our 5-year-old plays it right alongside of the adults. I mean, and she can win. So, yeah, just thought I'd mention that. If you got nothing else out of this conference, you know how to play tensies. Yeah. So, does anyone really have something you'd like me to address? Questions that come up? Yes. Yeah. From care to actually, one of the pastors at the church there. Are there others there with you? Okay. I would suggest you move from that is that you select 3 people that you think are above average in terms of their spiritual walk in life. Okay? Your other person on the team there, do the same thing. And then walk them through the process. I can send you not the PowerPoint, but I can send you the description of what we do in those groups, so you'd have them, and you can just start. But you need their commitment. You'll meet with them on a weekly basis. You'll go through the process that I talked about, but don't start with 20 groups or even try to do that. Just start with 4, because what we found is this, that after we've been involved in that group, if these guys are really spiritually along, we can, after about a month and a half, multiply the groups then, and that's kind of like advancing it more quickly. No, they are not necessarily connected, though it's a good place to do it. I mean, some of our core groups will ultimately become some of our new small groups, be part of it. But we usually start with the men, because the men are the ones that haven't been building relationships. Many times the women are naturally already having some key relationships. And the particular church I'm at right now, we started with men, but we really got a lot of quick feedback from the women that this is no fair, and we want to do it too. And so the deacons' wives started the first one, 4 of them, and they've multiplied now and are doing more as well. But basically we start small and then watch it go from there. And do make sure you meet with the leadership about every 6 weeks, or it'll fall apart. Probably to that person I'd say, yeah, cliques usually have, I mean, you can say cliques have a negative connotation, but in reality, that person, let's just say that person is probably feeling like they're not valued, they're not part of it, and they're out of it. There's some group they want to be part of, but that they're not, is generally the issue with them. People don't complain about a clique if they're in it. Right? So they're feeling on the outside, looking in. Let me also talk to you about, though, in terms of those groups. Have you ever multiplied any of those groups? Okay. One of the things that I would suggest in terms of multiplication is you work hard at, when we think we're about ready to multiply a group, we identify the next apprentice for the person that's going to multiply the group to. Then we identify 2 or 3 couples that is going to become part of that, and we encourage them to start wooing those three, going out to lunch with them, doing things together as a couple, so that when our group talks about multiplying, they're not fighting it, but that, oh, Joe, these are going to go. We celebrated at church. We've had a multiplication of this. Let's celebrate this. We're about to start our next group. We lift that up. I don't know if you're doing any of that, but I hope maybe you would consider doing some of the celebrating of multiplication. Don't ever use the word divide. We have enough of that in our churches. So we're multiplying. That kind of language. Okay? But yeah, I would endeavor to find out of that person that's starting. Sometimes they're coming and saying that because they heard it from someone else. So somebody's not feeling valued or loved or cared for, and try to connect them with someone. That's what I would say there. We have done that as well. Someone else? Go ahead, Pastor. Well, from the standpoint of, let's see, we'll back up with the care groups. Back when we started that, we had a different structure. I met with the leaders of the care groups every Sunday night. I did do that then. I wouldn't do that now, but I did it then, in which we went over everything that they were going to be looking at that week. So that was, I found that was very necessary, but we didn't have to end up meeting every week. After a while, we began to realize that was overkill for what we were requiring for the leaders. But we did need to meet with them every 4 to 6 weeks, just to make sure we're on top of what was happening. As for the core groups, the group I'm in, I meet with them every week, but I'm only in one, and other people are in one, and then once every 6 weeks, we just bring all the leaders together. And we interact with, what are you finding in your group? What kind of help do you need? What questions you have? What struggles are you having? So that we can just mentor the leaders. We don't bring everybody together every 6 weeks. No, we do not include the apprentices. Haven't included the apprentices, just the leaders. But those apprentices will eventually be leaders, and they'll be there. Because sometimes the problems they're going to talk about are the problems with their apprentice. And how can we do better in training them? But it's really like a rally, getting together and reminding them of what they're doing and how important it is and what's being accomplished. Uh-huh. Wow. What have some of you done on that case where you have painfully, you get Neil to come, right? I mean, really, does anybody have a suggestion there? I mean, I went out and I looked for people that would do it as a ministry outside the church and come in and help us, but we didn't pay them. We did find some other things happening by way of the college, and that is that a number of them married each other. You know, that was true as they served together. That was kind of fun. Some of them are in the mission field today that we're helping there. But I guess I would be very careful about what kind of music that you would be using. I tell you, great hymns done well is better than a praise band done badly. In my opinion, you know, I can worship with any, and you know what? They don't generally hate them. It's just that we're not putting it down. And then hymns done badly with the wrong instruments, because there is such a thing, right? Hymns done badly, you might better stick with the other instruments and that done. But yeah, I went and found help, is what I do when we come up with that. And sometimes some people need to be told that they're really not part of the praise team or worship team. But, no, banjo is pretty nice. We have a guy playing the banjo. Yeah. I love to hear that. You did a great for us. That was wonderful. Go ahead, Lay. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
I know of some churches that use canned music, music.
Okay.
It's not as good, but it's better than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of them doing that too. In fact, that one church, when I left and took college kids with us, they did go to some canned music for a while. But it didn't hurt them. So, yeah, good questions. I mean, we talked about an awful lot of stuff today, but I just wanted you to start maybe thinking a little, realize you can think differently. Maybe that's what I was hoping to accomplish. Well, sure. Well, they may be deacons to begin with, but I began to establish what I call a pastoral team. Now, even the guy at the church I'm at right now, Will, honestly, he is a guy that I think if he were willing, I think they could call him his pastor. He did have a Bible school education, but he loves what he's doing and the work that he's doing. So I just pulled Will alongside. I call him every Wednesday, see if I can meet him for lunch. We do lunch meetings together. He's not sitting there thinking, oh, he's treating me like a pastor. I treat him, in my mind, like he's on my pastoral team and that we are a team. He is the chairman of the deacons in this case, so he'll be at those deacons meetings. But none of the deacons realize that I'm doing that. But I just don't want to be functioning as the guy. I don't think it's healthy for the church. And so I just pull the guy alongside. And I've done that at each church. As God seemed to identify an individual, then I meet with them. I'll walk with them depending on depending on what day of the week I'm there and what their schedule is. We'll meet additionally. I call them during the week and interact with them about ideas and thoughts. He's preaching tomorrow at the church I'm at. So that's kind of how I include them, whether he's a deacon or not a deacon. Some of the churches have where you can only serve so many years as a deacon, then you have to sit out a year, something like that. Sometimes it's that person that I will do, but it's not just anybody, and I'm not. No. No, he doesn't know he is. He doesn't know I'm functioning in that fashion. I don't come in there to try to change their polity and that type of thing, but I do want them to understand that I'm not an entity to myself, and it's kind of interesting to see the next guy coming in to help him understand how we've been functioning, and hoping that he'll pick up and begin to function in a similar manner. Because if he comes in as a dictator, or if the board decides to take over and be a board-run church, both are going to be not good. So I really try to work with that in individuals. Okay. We don't want to set them backwards. Nor do I want to establish an elder-ruled church. I just don't think that's where we should go. Yes. Well, I do think that what we're talking about can help, but there's other things that I also do when I go into a church that would be structured much like you're describing, whether it's but generally when I go into the troubled churches, there will be a group of seniors, and then there'll be a gap. There'll either be a gap there, somewhere along the line, there'll be a gap of people missing. And it often seems like they're almost adversarial. Would you think that'd be true? Okay. So I always begin, in every church, I begin what I call a senior partner ministry. And by senior partners, I'm doing a play on words like a law firm has senior partners. So I bring the seniors in real close. And I will, tonight I will write a letter and send it up there. And when the seniors come in, they'll find a letter from me explaining and telling them about what's going on in the ministry, what we're trying to do, and if it were the youth, what we're doing with the youth, what they can be praying about, and what they can help with. Seniors feel like they're not valued, that somebody's trying to run away from them, that people don't care about them. So by doing this senior partner, they get a letter every Sunday morning. First thing they come in, they'll pick that letter up. You can have them addressed to each one individually, which is what I like to do, so that if they didn't pick their letter up, we send it to them on Monday morning. We also know who was absent of the seniors, because that's often a sign of sickness or needing some care. So that's very helpful. And then once a month, like you have a kitchen here, I put on a breakfast or lunch for them as one of the pastors. We have breakfast, and then after the breakfast, we have a question and answer time with the seniors. Anything they want to ask about. Change begins to happen, and I blame them for it, because they've been praying for it. They've heard about what's going on. We've talked about it. They're the problem. That's the reason the teens are doing what they're doing, because you wanted them to. No, seriously, it really is. They then feel valued. They feel like they're doing something of value. They're praying about all the stuff that's going on, and they can see things taking place. And that's for any area change, whether we're going to get rid of the pews. That's like death knell. It's not a church if it doesn't have pews. Well, yeah, but we've been able to make those transitions because the seniors are the ones that helped us make that transition. Ultimately, every change, there is loss and there is gain. In every you shouldn't be doing the change if it's not gain, but you have to help them, and many times it's the seniors, help the seniors understand that this change, this loss is worth it for the gain. And I'm telling you what, they'll be, I can almost guarantee you that they'll root you on to see youth get involved and love Jesus and go for God. And they'll support it. They'll send them to conferences. They'll do all kinds of stuff. But not if they feel like they're not valued and they're being pushed aside. So that's, and I really do. Every church I go into, I start the senior partners. And they love it when the pastor will serve them. Or they really do. It's some of the best money I could spend. And they give me a church allowance, expenditure allowance, and I spend it on them. So it's okay. I hope that helps. Of course, the pastor has to get involved in it too. It can't. You're asking the question, but my email is dmccall, MCCALL, at Clarks, CLARKS, and then SUMMITU.edu. It's long enough, isn't it? ClarksSummitU.edu. And really, any of these PowerPoints, or if you have questions, I probably have, after 20 years there trying to teach our guys that are going to be pastors, I might have PowerPoints on most anything, type of thing that would be helpful. When I go to a church, what I showed you today, before I go, I show them this. I I don't show them the last segment, but I show them pastoral team leaders' ideas, the difference in structure, the difference in church on cell group ministries. I show them the thing about discipleship. I show them all of that, and I basically say, this is where I'm going to be functioning from. If this isn't what you want, then you don't want me here. They are clueless about it usually, what the ramifications of that are. But you know what? They're okay. Somebody has an idea, a leadership. They want to be led. They want to be loved. They want to be led. And probably in that order. Yeah. It's interesting to me in 1 Corinthians that Paul addresses all kinds of issues. You've noticed that, I'm sure. But at the end in chapter 16, and it's the verse, I actually have this on my license plate, all in love. That's what Paul said. After he gets all done with all this thing, and don't forget, all that you do in love. So I think he did it all in love. You get to 2 Corinthians and you begin to wonder if they realize that, but yeah.
Do you see trends, or are they, when you go into the church, is there a trending viewpoint, or are they all over the place?
Did you hear that? Is there a trend in the churches that I've gone into? And or are, in terms of the 8, I'm assuming, in terms of the 8, are they all over? The larger churches, the trend is that their minimum factor would be, can you guess? Anybody want to guess? Loving relationships. That's the trend there. And in the, if I would move it away from the 6, I would say the overall trend is they do not reproduce reproducers. They're not really thinking about equipping the people in the church to do the work of the ministry from a reproducing perspective. That would be the other. So maybe we could say effective leadership is one. If that came under that, that would be one of the trends as well. Yeah, music is an issue in many of them. And then, of course, small groups is becoming more and more prevalent, but not holistic small groups. So that also, they'll have small groups, or they'll even say sometimes like, well, we tried small groups. Well, they tried Bible studies usually, something like that, but they didn't try really a holistic small group. Maybe I said there's just too many things there, but really loving relationships is the trend on larger churches. Because you can't connect with everybody. You got to learn how to do that. Go ahead. Changing small groups to what? Yeah. If you're looking at doing that, you're not really doing holistic small groups. What you're doing is Bible studies. People have come to like that teacher. They're going to stay there forever. Nobody else. There's not an intentionality about outreach or bringing other people in. In that construct, I guess I would say, yeah, you probably ought to shake it up once in a while. But the other one is that the groups ought to be with a mindset toward we are going to multiply. And who is it that we're inviting in? Am I looking for someone else? And once it gets up to 15, 16, 17, you know you got to multiply. It's getting too big then. And so but if you don't have apprentices there, like we stopped multiplying groups until we could get apprentices, because otherwise we're just going to have a leader and they're going to be there. And when it gets too big, then it's just stuck too big and they're going to be together. So you got to really put all that together. And it's not going to be easy in some of the churches that are smaller to find competent people to be apprentices until you work with them to grow them in that area. I don't know that I try to shake it up before I start D groups and try to really help them develop in that small setting, women, men, maybe multiply there and let the group stay together while you're building up other people. I think that's probably where I would go today in that. Shaking up sounds really divisive. Yeah. Well, let me put it in a different context. I did some shaking up, and I almost didn't survive it. I had adult class. When I started at the church, I had 3 adults in my class. But God honored that. Honored His word, and the class grew to 50, then 60, then 70. At one point, I had 150 in my adult class, and then it went down to like 125 and then 100. Then it would go back up to 120 and back down. I was learning the yo-yo because I can't maintain the relationships there. So we decided to divide the group. Okay? That was, and so I had a person that was working with him as a teacher, a good friend, so we were working together, and basically I dictated. I said, this age group in this old class is going to be with Bob, and this age group is going to be with me. And you would have thought I had committed the unpardonable sin. And it took us a year to survive that in terms of that. So then we figured out how to multiply an adult class. And what I began to do after that is we have a teacher, we're training a teacher, and after a while I'd ask that teacher to endear himself to about 5 couples in the class. And after a while we'd start another class with him as a teacher and the apprentice, and we'd have another class. We found this. Every time that class, the new class, got to about 30 to 35, it stalled. That was it. And if we would multiply that class as it got the next class, we'd get up to about 35, maybe 40, and then we'd start another class. We kept starting adult classes in that way, and we didn't run into the revolt anymore. It's wisely preparing. Somebody must have told me how to do it. I'm surely not that smart, but it worked. Maybe I was in a conference like this or something. Yeah. And I'm just passing it on. But it was ugly that first time. Real ugly. Because people want what they want. You ever notice that? Okay. It's 3 o'clock. I don't know if you have anything else. You guys, I'll take more questions, but you also have those books. I really would love to see you take one of those books and use it for a month or 2 or 3, you know, out there. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Thank you for coming. We weren't sure how this would be attended.